Hi guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video we are going to be making this one shoulder top inspired by Vicky James. This tutorial is a very detailed one. I hope you learn a thing or two. Please do make sure to like, share and subscribe, and let's get into the video. Starting with our front pattern piece, our pattern paper, we're going to be having it on a fold. We're going to be having a full pattern paper, right here I'm going to just be labeling it. We have our chest line, bust line, under bust, waistline and hip line. I'm going to be placing my tape so that you can see the measurement points, right? So we have the chest line here, which is 8.5, 11 inches, 14 inches, 18 inches, and then we have the hip line. Now we are going to be opening up our paper. Make sure to crease the center of your paper, that way you can place your measurements better. Now from the crease of the center paper there, we are going to be marking our bust point, which is 4 inches. We're going to mark it on the bust line, under bust, waistline and hip line. Next, we're going to go ahead and replicate the bust points on the opposite side of the pattern paper. So we'll be marking 4 inches on the chest line, bust line, under bust and waistline and hip line. Now we're going to go ahead and roll the 4 inches from the bust line to the hip line. Now we'll roll on both sides. Now next we're going to go ahead and mark 1 inch on both sides on the nipple to nipple mark. So you'll be marking that on the under bust, waistline and the hip line, which is also the length of the top. Okay, now we're also going to replicate that on the opposite side of our pattern paper. Now we're going to go ahead and roll those lines together, so connecting the lines from the under bust to the length of the top, from the under bust to the length of the top on both sides. Next, we're going to go ahead and use our curve ruler to curve out the line from the bust line to the under bust, and we'll be doing that on both sides also. Next, on one shoulder, on one side of the pattern paper, we're going to be marking a neck width of 3.5 using the crease as the center point, and then we'll be marking 1 inch down for shoulder slope. So now what we are going to be using to differentiate these two parts is one with shoulder and one without shoulder. So please take note of that, so that when I'm explaining, you understand what part I'm talking about. Now we are going to be drawing a curved line from the part with the shoulder down to the opposite end. So first I'm going to be making use of my pencil, so that if I make mistakes, it's not so visible, in order to make the pattern paper rough. You can go ahead and draw directly. Whatsoever you choose to do, just do it, and make sure you draw out your neckline. So we're drawing out the neckline from the shoulder point down to the chest line of the opposite end. All right, so now I'm using my marker. Right now, with the side that has the shoulder, we'll be placing our tape on the armhole there, and you can see we have 7.5. Now I'm going to be folding my tape to get the midpoint of 7.5. Now we're going to go ahead and mark that. So there we have 3.75, I think. So now from that point, we are going to be using our armhole. We're going to be coming inwards by half an inch first, and then we'll be connecting that to the shoulder point. After that, we'll be using our curved ruler to curve it out. So that way we have our armhole, right? Next, we'll be making use of our curved ruler again, and then we'll be connecting from that point of our armhole down to the bust point there. So the center of the armhole to the bust point. That way we have our princess darts for one side of the pattern paper. Okay. So next, on the princess darts there, we're going to be placing our tape on that mark, and we'll be marking half inch on both sides, and then we'll be connecting those half inch again to the bust points. Okay. Now we are going to be extending the armhole of that princess, that's the side front. Okay, and then after extending by half an inch, we'll be drawing out the new armhole. So we are going to be marking off, cancelling off the old armhole. Now we are going to go ahead and place our body measurement for the part of the pattern with the shoulder. So be adding your bust measurement plus the 1 inch that we took on the armhole and 1 inch sewing allowance. Do not forget that 1 inch we took on the armhole. If not, your armhole is going to be way shorter and tighter for you. So now the bust line, we're adding our bust measurement, half inch allowance for the dart and 1 inch sewing allowance. Moving on to the under bust, we'll go ahead and place our under bust measurement plus 2 inches for the dart and 1 inch sewing allowance. So while placing this measurement, you will use the center crease as a guide so as to have a perfect measurement on each side. Also for the waistline, place your waistline measurement, 2 inches for your dart and 1 inch sewing allowance. For the length of the top, you'll be adding your hip line measurement, or you can minus 1 inch or 1.5 inch from your hip line measurement and be placing that, adding the 2 inches for the dart and 1 inch sewing allowance. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect these lines together. Moving on to the opposite end, now we are going to be placing our body measurement also. So on the chest line, you'll just be adding your bust measurement with 1 inch sewing allowance. That's all. So we don't have any armhole allowance for this opposite end because we don't have any princess darts there, right? Now for the bust points on the bust line, for the bust line, we are going to be placing our bust measurement and 1 inch sewing allowance. For the under bust, we're going ahead to place our under bust measurement, the 2 inches for the dart that we took in, and then 1 inch sewing allowance. You're going to also do the same thing on the waistline. Your waistline measurement, the 2 inches for the dart and 1 inch sewing allowance. Also for the hip, the same measurement you use for the hip on the opposite end, that's what you'll be placing on this end. Okay, you're replacing that plus your 2 inch sewing and 2 inch dart and 1 inch sewing allowance. Now we're going to go ahead and connect those lines together. On the waistline of the side that doesn't have the shoulder, right, we're going to go ahead and place our tape on the waistline and mark 3 inches down. Okay, and then for the opposite end, we'll be placing our tape on the waistline there and be marking 5 inches down towards the hips. Now I'm going to go ahead and connect that 5 inches to that point. Okay, so you can see where I'm rolling to. That is exactly what you are going to do. So moving on to the opposite side of our pattern paper, right, now that 3 inches mark that we've marked, we are going to be connecting it to the opposite bust point, not to the bust that we already made on the side without the shoulder. So you're connecting from the side without the shoulder down to the bust dart of the side with the shoulder. You can see what I'm doing. Okay, what I'm doing is pretty explanatory. Now we're going to go ahead and cut our pattern. This is what the front pattern is going to be looking like. Now I'm going to be separating the part of the top that has the princess dart. Okay, and then the other parts will just be one piece. So after cutting this, now we are going to be doing the slash and spread method now. So on the bust line, I'm slashing down to the side of the top. So just pay attention to what I'm doing exactly. What I'm doing is pretty explanatory. And right here, I'm using my paper tape and I'm just taping down the darts. And then right the hem of the top, I'm just making sure that it aligns after covering up the dart. Okay, so now I'm just going to be taking my ruler and pencil and I'm going to be rolling straight lines and I'm going to be slashing. Okay, so while slashing, I'm going to make sure that I gum these pieces together or sellotape them, whichever. Just pay attention to what I'm doing. My slash and spread is quite rough, but it's getting the job done. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and slash and spread. Pay attention to what I'm doing so that I can understand better. Okay, now while we are slashing and spreading, there is a no-go area, which is the part where I just rolled now. Okay, so from the waist to the hip, you are not slashing and spreading anything there. So you can see the way I cut out that part and I left it out. Okay, so that is the waistline towards the hip. We are not going to slash and spread after that. Okay, so please take note of that. Now we are going to move to drafting the back pattern, just like the way we did for the front pattern. That is exactly what we will be doing for the back pattern concerning the folding of the paper. Okay, so now for the back pattern, we're going to go ahead and place our bust dart, which is 4 inches. I'm placing that on my chest line and my length, which we could also call the hip line, and I'm also going to be marking 1/2 inch on both sides. I'll be repeating the same thing on the opposite end, 4 inches bust dart, and then 4 inches also on the length of the top with 1/2 inch on both sides. Now I'm going to go ahead and rule in the dart lines. So we are going to be placing our neck width. Our neck width is 3.5, just like the way we placed for the front. You notice that the part I'm placing the neck width is opposite to the part where I placed the neck width for the front piece. That is exactly what you should do. When you are placing your shoulder and your the neckline, you place it on the opposite end. Okay, so the shoulder was on the right side here for the front, and now it's on the left side for the back. So I went ahead to place 1 inch shoulder slope, and I'm going to be drawing my neckline just like the way we did with the front down to the chest line. Okay, So now I'm going to use my marker and mark out the back neckline. So please take note of that. Next, we are going to be adding our body measurements. So you add your body measurements with 1 inch sewing allowance and that allowance. Okay, so you'll be placing that from your bust, your chest line, bust line, waistline, and then hip line. You would also be repeating the same thing you do on the left side, on the right side for the back pattern piece. So it is not different, just like the way we had for the front pattern piece. Okay, so you place your measurements on both sides and then you go ahead and roll. Moving on the side with the shoulder, just like the way we marked for the front piece, we're going to be marking 5 inches downwards, and then on the side without the shoulder we'll be marking 3 inches downwards. That is exactly what we did for the front piece. The part without the shoulder 3 inches downwards from the waist, and the part with the shoulder 5 inches downward from the waist. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and connect the 5 inches to the busts, the nipple to nipple darts there, right? And then for the 3 inches you also be connecting it to the opposite end of the darts. Okay, just like the way we did for the front piece. And now I'm going to be rolling a line in the middle at the crease there that we had on our paper that helps us know the center part of this pattern, and that is where we are going to be cutting and dividing these two parts to have our zipper allowance. Okay, so this is one part of the front piece, the one where we had the slash and spread. This is what it's looking like. Okay, this is the way I slashed and spread it, adding ½ inch at the sides for the joining, and this is the opposite side of the front piece. Right here on the waistline I'm notching it. Okay, I'll also go ahead and notch the waistline of the opposite piece. So right here I'm just matching them to make sure that they align together, and then I'll be notching them, because just like the way we were when we were cutting the waistline down towards the hip line, there is no gathers. So notching that point helps you know that you are not pulling the gathers down below the waistline. Okay, so that is the reason for the notching. Now I'm just going to go ahead and join these two pieces, the two front pieces together. For this particular project I didn't make use of lining because I'm making use of scrap fabric, because it's just for tutorial purposes. But if you are going to be making this for yourself or for somebody, I advise that you make use of a lining piece so that your fabric is a lot more thicker and more sturdier. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and pin this round, and I'll gather it a little bit more, and then we'll go ahead and sew. So right here I already sewed it down. Okay, so this is what it's looking like. It came out really pretty. And then I also went ahead to join the back on opposite ends. Okay, so this is what it's looking like now. Next I'm going to go ahead to join the shoulder and then fold the armhole. Since I'm not making use of any lining piece, so I'm just going to be folding it inwards. Now this is what it's looking like after folding and joining the shoulder. Next we are going to be adding the black fabric for the neckline. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and cut that out. Now for the top part, the neckline of the top, we have a black fabric here that we folded into two, and for that we have a length of 3 inches. Okay, so now that is the length we have. We're going to go ahead and place, measure from the shoulder point down towards the back. Okay, so I'm just placing my tape and I'm measuring the length that we have. So we have about 24 inches there, and then you are also going to be adding about 5 to 6 inches for your armhole allowance. Okay, so for where you'll be inserting your arm. Okay, so I've already showed you the length that we have. Now for the width, okay, I'm going to be going up from 2 inches to the end of 3.5 inches. So I just sloped my line from that 2 inches down towards the 3.5. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. Next, I'm going to go ahead and place it on my shoulder, and then I'm just going to pin it down and sew, leaving 5 inches or 4 inches for my armhole. Okay, I'm going to come back and show you guys what it's looking like. So I opened my shoulder to about halfway so that I can insert the black piece for the neckline. Okay, so I went ahead to sew it this way. So I sewed it on the wrong side, and now we are going to be flipping it to the right side after sewing. Okay, so this is what it's looking like. Now we're going to go ahead and join it this way, join back the shoulder. Okay, so after doing that, this is what is going to be looking like. Okay, for the armhole, I'm going to be showing you how many inches I gave on the front piece and on the back piece. So I'm going to be placing my tape. I took about 2 inches on the front piece and 2.5 inches for the back piece. You can make it 2 inches, 2 inches, whichever works. Okay, so now this is what it's looking like. I'm going to go ahead and join the shoulders. So now I'm gonna head to join the shoulder, fold the hem, and also add my zip. Okay, and this is what it's looking like. It came out really neat and pretty. So this is what it's looking like. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you really learned in this video. Please do make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.